Snow everywhere out there, man. We should have recorded a Frozen review in this.
Yeah, totally, man.
What are you even playing?
Ha! Wreck-It Ralph. Blu-ray DVD combo pack.
Yeah. This is some quality graphics. We don't think we need to go through and explain every aspect of why Wreck-It Ralph is a solid film, nor do we think we could. It's just so good. And to all of you out there who are like, Wreck-It Ralph isn't even that good, solely on the fact that it's pink, we got one thing to say to you.
It's salmon. It's obviously salmon.
One point of Wreck-It Ralph that they do really well is how they do exposition. It's crazy. The world that our story takes place in is huge, and the general rules and physics that our characters have to adhere to are different than our own. In addition to that, each game that they travel to has its own additional set of rules, physics, and locations. In Robert McKee's story, he defines exposition as facts, the information about the setting, characters, and biography that the audience needs to know to comprehend the events of a story. So the fact that Wreck-It Ralph has all these different locations and rules and physics that are different than our own, we need to be able to comprehend that so that the story can incite like fear and stakes and consequences and then eventually resolution.
The problem we get with a lot of movies that try to have big worlds is that they wind up skimping on character development. But Wreck-It Ralph does this really well in that they have the characters sort of discovering the world, learning about it and themselves, and you're right there with them as the audience the whole time, learning things real time with them. And since we're learning about the world with the characters, it doesn't feel like we're being force-fed information. We're actually hungry for this. We want to see these things, and we want to learn more about the world as the story develops. The first point of exposition that we want to talk about is exposition through character, and it always feels more natural than other forms of exposition, because it's just somebody telling you something about the way they perceive reality. Like when, at the very beginning, Wreck-It Ralph is talking to all of the villains at Bad Guys Anonymous, he's just sort of telling them about his life, and he's telling the audience about his life. Sort of. We're just sort of sitting there observing alongside all the other villains, where Ralph says working a video game is just like having a regular day job, and he's been doing it for 30 years, and he's kind of tired of doing it. Things like Felix's magic hammer. He doesn't just tell us that, he's got a magic hammer. He tells us in a very sarcastic and snarky way, which tells us that Felix has the magic hammer, but it also tells us a bit about Ralph and how he feels. You know, he's like, anybody could do that if they had a magic hammer. So he's very, he's kind of bitter about it. So it feels natural because he's not just saying it, it's sort of comes through with his personality, all of these things that he's trying to tell us. A counterpoint to that is when Ralph is walking through Game Central Station and Sonic is sitting there telling just sort of nobody that if you die outside of your game, you're dead for good. That feels very exposition-y. It takes us out of the world for a little bit because we're very aware that that's something the movie wants us to know. It's just sort of telling us that.
Another way they do exposition really well is visually. Like, in any story, if you show them something about the world and you don't have to tell it to them, it's going to feel natural because you're putting it together yourself and they're not forcing the information on you. So the best example of this is when they're coming outside of Pac-Man initially, going into Grand Central Station the first time, we see like the little dots going down the wire. You're like, okay, that's them going into this hub. And then when they get there, it's just like this big hub of games. And we see all this and no one's like telling us this. So it feels natural and it's something really important to the world, but no one's telling us. So we're like, that's awesome. I fell off at the end there, but. One really smart way they do exposition is using known game mechanics to tell the audience stuff. They do this when Ralph is in the game and Glasses Gamer Girl that we sort of follow is playing Hero's Duty. Calhoun is then telling the first-person shooter about the cybugs, that whatever they eat turns into them and that you have to shoot their eggs or else they'll, reproduce. It's cool because that's just the thing about games. Like if I was probably Glasses Gamer Girl, I'd be like, shut up, Calhoun, I just want to play the game. But the fact that I'm watching her do it to her, I'm just like, yeah, that's just the thing about games. But we're logging in our mind those two things about the cybugs.
The coolest way they pull off exposition is through character discovery. We're learning things about the world real time with other characters on screen. Whoever decided to make Hero's Duty the new game in the arcade, it was a clutch move. It works really well because the old games don't know anything about the world of Hero's Duty, and vice versa. Calhoun doesn't know anything about these older games, or the arcade itself. So we have to watch both characters sort of learning about each other's games in the arcade itself, and we as the audience feel like it's a natural progression of knowledge. So through character discovery, everybody has to sort of learn and come up to speed and make conclusions, and we're seeing all of that happen real time. So you as the audience start to put things together at the same time that characters are putting it together, and it feels like you're in the world, not like the world is being told to you or being forced upon you. We're actually like hunting for this information and knowledge about the world to put it all together.
As Calhoun and Felix are going into Sugar Rush for the first time, we're not sure yet as the audience how threatening the Cybugs are. But also, neither does Felix. So right here it's where Calhoun tells Felix how much of a threat they are. And she even goes into saying, "You think they're going to stop at Sugar Rush?" And Felix is like, "Yes!" Because he doesn't know. And then that really drives home the point that no, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going into all of Central Station. And that puts it on us as the audience to be like, oh, wow, this is actually a really big threat that needs to be stopped. But it doesn't feel forced because she's telling Felix.
Another example between Calhoun and Felix is when Calhoun is asking about what it means to go turbo. She doesn't know, and we as the audience have been asking the same question the whole time. So it feels really good when Felix actually explains what it is, because we've been seeing this and we know it's a part of their life and culture within the arcade. The reason it feels natural is because Calhoun doesn't know, so it isn't like somebody's explaining what going turbo is to the audience. It's somebody within the story actually having to learn what turbo is.
And by far the coolest way they tell us something is when Ralph is right outside the penthouse looking out when he's super depressed and all. It's just the paper swings down and then you see it. You see Sugar Rush. And then there's two ways you can look at that. You're like, why is Vanellope on the side of the game? Or if you're like me, you're like, there's a continuity error. Until they cut back to Ralph's face and it's just a slow kind of camera moving in. You're just like, oh. And right there in that moment, both of you are real time figuring out and thinking the exact same thing. And to me, that's just amazing how you can bank off pushing the audience to think something exactly the same time as the main character with no one telling you. It's amazing! So then right after that, we're still wondering why is she on the side of this game. So we go to good old Sour Bill, who then tells us, and the fact is this whole interrogation scene just really drives home the point again that we're just kind of onlookers, and it feels so natural because we're all just trying to figure this out together. It's like a mystery. There you go. Case closed. Wreck-It Ralph.
Just be like, hey guys, thanks for watching. What did you guys think about Wreck-It Ralph? Was it good? Was it bad? Too pink? Not enough pink? Like, comment, subscribe, follow us on MySpace.
Okay.
Or just use that, me yelling. That's how you do it!
Right there. Are you recording?
Annotation like here and here, telling them to go watch some of the videos we do on our other stuff. Big old annotation right on your face, Adam. This is about that big.
This is too much.